The rifle shot echoed across the Montana prairie as Zara O'Connor lowered her smoking weapon, the fallen rattlesnake twitching its last at the edge of the dusty trail. Adjusting her skirts with one hand, she tucked the rifle under her arm and continued her determined march toward the small town of Clearwater Springs, ignoring the shocked expressions of the men who had witnessed her deadly accuracy from the boardwalk. It was 1875, and Zara had traveled over 2,000 miles from Boston to meet her future husband, a man she knew only through 6 exchanged letters and a promise of security in the untamed West. At 23, she had left behind a life of increasing poverty and diminishing prospects following her father's death. Her mother's final words before consumption still rang in Zara's ears. "Never let a man clip your wings, my fierce girl." The stagecoach had left her at the crossroads 5 miles back, the driver claiming wheel trouble but clearly unnerved by her straightforward manner and refusal to simper at his crude jokes. She had walked the rest of the way, her trunk to follow on the next coach. "Madam," a voice called out as she approached the town's main street, "that was some fine shooting." Zara turned to see a tall man with sun-bronzed skin leaning against a hitching post, his hat tipped low over his eyes. "The snake disagreed," she replied evenly. A smile flickered across his face. "Zachary Winters," he introduced himself, extending a calloused hand. "Town sheriff." She shifted her rifle and returned the handshake with a firm grip. "Zara O'Connor, I'm here to meet my betrothed, Mr. Edmund Blake." The sheriff's smile faltered. "Blake's ranch is about 10 miles north of town. I'm heading that direction myself shortly. Could offer you a ride." Something in his tone made her pause. "Is there something I should know about Mr. Blake?" Sheriff Winters adjusted his hat. "Not my place to say, Miss O'Connor. But I reckon a woman who can shoot like you might just be what Blake needs, or perhaps more than he bargained for." An hour later, seated beside the sheriff in his wagon, Zara watched the prairie grass bend in waves beneath the afternoon breeze. The sheriff remained mostly silent, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing brief anecdotes about the territory. "May I ask why you're visiting Blake's ranch?" she finally questioned, tired of the tension hanging between them. "Tax collection," he answered simply. "Blake's 3 months behind." As they crested a small hill, a modest ranch came into view: a main house, a barn, and several outbuildings surrounded by split-rail fencing. Cattle dotted the nearby pastures. "Doesn't look like the grand estate he described," Zara murmured, more to herself than her companion. "Few things out here match the stories men tell," Winters replied. They were greeted at the gate by a weather-beaten man in his 40s, his beard unkempt and eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Winters," he acknowledged gruffly before his gaze landed on Zara. "Who's this, Mr. Blake?" Zara stepped down from the wagon without assistance. "I'm Zara O'Connor. We've been corresponding about marriage." Blake's expression shifted from surprise to assessment, his eyes traveling up and down her form with open appraisal. "You're earlier than expected, and different." "Different," she echoed. "Your letters," he began, then shook his head. "Never mind, come inside." "Winters, my taxes can wait until tomorrow," the sheriff interrupted. "I'll see Miss O'Connor settled first." Blake's mouth tightened into a thin line. "That won't be necessary. She's my intended." Zara stepped forward. "I appreciate your concern, Sheriff, but I should speak with Mr. Blake privately." Winters hesitated. "I'll be in town through the week if you need anything, Miss O'Connor." As the sheriff's wagon disappeared down the trail, Blake led her toward the house. "You didn't mention being so." He paused, searching for words. "So what, Mr. Blake?" "Headstrong," he decided. "Your letters were more demure." Zara followed him onto the porch. "I wrote honestly about my circumstances and character." "You wrote that you were raised to be a proper lady," Blake countered, opening the door to reveal a Spartan interior. "I was," she confirmed. "My father also taught me to shoot, ride, and speak my mind when necessary. Are these qualities that concern you?" Blake's laugh held little humor. "A wife with too many opinions makes for a difficult household." Zara set her carpet bag down firmly. "I believe we should discuss expectations before proceeding further." The next morning found Zara alone in the small bedroom Blake had provided, staring at the ceiling after a night of troubled sleep. Their conversation had deteriorated quickly when Blake outlined his requirements: obedience, silence unless spoken to, and an immediate start to producing children. When she expressed her desire for partnership rather than servitude, his face had darkened with anger. "You'll learn your place or find yourself on the next stage east," he had threatened before storming out to the barn. A knock at the front door roused her from her thoughts. Quickly dressing, she made her way through the quiet house. Blake had not returned last night. Sheriff Winters stood on the porch, hat in hand. "Morning, Miss O'Connor. Blake around?" "He spent the night in the barn, I believe," she answered, stepping outside and closing the door behind her. "Or perhaps he's checking his herd." Winters studied her face. "Everything all right, mister?" "Blake and I have discovered some incompatibilities in our expectations," she admitted. "I fear I'm not the submissive bride he anticipated." "Few women who brave the journey west are as biddable as men hope," Winters observed. "What will you do now?" Zara squared her shoulders. "I have enough funds for return passage, but—" She looked out over the vast landscape, something in her reluctant to surrender so quickly. "My sister runs the boarding house in town," Winters offered. "She could use help if you're looking for alternatives." Before she could respond, Blake emerged from the barn, his expression hardening at the sight of them conversing. "Collecting taxes at sunrise now, Winters?" he called, striding toward them. "Just being neighborly," the sheriff replied evenly. Blake's eyes narrowed. "Nothing neighborly about sniffing around another man's intended." "Mr. Blake," Zara interjected. "The sheriff is simply quiet," Blake snapped. "I'll handle this." Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I will not be spoken to like a disobedient child." Blake's hand shot out, gripping her arm. "You'll learn respect," or in one fluid motion, Zara twisted free and stepped back, putting distance between them. "I believe our arrangement is concluded, Mr. Blake. I'll gather my things." "You're not going anywhere," Blake growled, advancing toward her. Sheriff Winters stepped between them. "That's enough, Blake. Stay out of this, Winters. This is between me and my woman." "I am not your woman," Zara declared. "Our correspondence did not constitute ownership." Blake lunged forward, but the sheriff intercepted him with a swift movement, twisting Blake's arm behind his back. "You're making a mistake, Blake," Winters warned. "Miss O'Connor is free to leave if she chooses." "The money I spent bringing her here will be repaid," Zara interrupted. "I have no desire to remain indebted to you." After a tense moment, Blake wrenched free of the sheriff's grip. "Take her then," he spat. "Too fierce by half for any real man to handle." 20 minutes later, Zara sat beside Sheriff Winters in his wagon, her carpetbag the only possession she had reclaimed. Her trunk would arrive with the next stagecoach, but Blake had refused to return the fare money she had sent him. "I'll pay him back once I find employment," she said, breaking the silence as they traveled toward town. "Blake's known for stretching the truth to get what he wants," Winters replied. "You're not the first mail-order bride to discover his true nature." Zara turned to him in surprise. "There were others, two that I know of, both left within a month. Blake's reputation in town isn't stellar." "You might have mentioned this yesterday," she remarked dryly. Winters had the grace to look abashed. "Not my place to interfere in private arrangements. Though I admit, when I saw you handle that rifle, I wondered if you might be different." "Different how?" "Strong enough to either change him or leave him," he answered honestly. Clearwater Springs proved to be a growing settlement of about 500 souls. The main street boasted a general store, saloon, small church, telegraph office, and various other establishments necessary for frontier living. The boarding house, a 2-story white clapboard building with green shutters, stood at the quieter end of town. Zadie Winters, the sheriff's younger sister by 2 years, welcomed Zara with surprising warmth. "Any woman who stands up to Edmund Blake is welcome under my roof," she declared after hearing an abbreviated version of events. "And if you're half as capable as Zach suggests, I could use your help running this place." Within days, Zara had established herself as an invaluable assistant at the boarding house. Her organizational skills, developed while managing her father's household accounts, brought order to Zadie's haphazard bookkeeping. Her cooking, while not extraordinary, was substantial improvement over Zadie's often scorched offerings. Sheriff Winters stopped by frequently, sometimes for meals, sometimes just to check how she was settling in. Their conversations grew longer, their shared laughter more frequent. Zara found herself looking forward to his visits, appreciating his direct manner and thoughtful observations. "The town's autumn festival is next weekend," he mentioned one evening as they sat on the boarding house porch. "Might be a good way for you to meet more folks." "Are you inviting me, Sheriff?" she asked, a smile playing at her lips. "Zachary," he corrected. "And yes, I suppose I am." The day of the festival arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. The town square had been transformed with decorations of autumn leaves and harvest bounty. Musicians played lively tunes while children raced between game booths and adults gathered to socialize. Zara wore her best dress, a deep green that complemented her auburn hair. When Zachary offered his arm, she took it without hesitation, aware of the approving glances from townspeople as they strolled together. "You've become quite popular," he observed. "Mrs. Peterson at the general store mentioned how you helped organize her inventory system." "It gave me something useful to do while earning store credit," Zara explained. "I still need to repay Blake." Zachary's expression darkened. "Blake's been spreading stories about you in town." "What kind of stories?" "Nothing worth repeating," he said firmly. "Most folks know better than to believe him anyway." As they approached the refreshment table, Zara spotted Blake across the square, deep in conversation with several rough-looking men. When he noticed her with the sheriff, his face contorted with anger. "Perhaps we should move elsewhere," she suggested. "We have as much right to be here as he does," Zachary replied, but guided her toward the dance area nonetheless. As afternoon turned to evening, lanterns were lit and the music slowed to more intimate melodies. Zachary led her in a dance, his hand warm at her waist. "You're quite good at this for a lawman," she teased. "My mother insisted both her children learn proper social graces," he explained. "Said we never knew when civilization might catch up to us out here." "She sounds wise." "She was," he agreed, his voice softening with memory. "Would have liked you, I think," said the West needed women with fire in their hearts. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Zara felt her pulse quicken as Zachary drew her slightly closer. The moment was shattered by a commotion at the edge of the dance area. Blake stood there, clearly intoxicated, pointing in their direction. "There she is," he slurred loudly. "The Ice Queen from Boston, too high and mighty for a real rancher, but happy to warm the sheriff's bed." Zachary released Zara and moved toward Blake with purposeful strides. "That's enough, Blake. You're drunk and causing a disturbance. Defending your woman's honor," Blake sneered. "She ain't nothing but a—" Zachary's hand clamped onto Blake's shoulder. "One more word and you'll spend the night in jail." Blake shoved him away. "You don't scare me, Winters." He reached for something at his waist. Zara saw the glint of metal before anyone else reacted. "Zachary," she cried in warning. The sheriff's reflexes were lightning fast. His hand closed over Blake's wrist, twisting until the knife clattered to the ground. In seconds, Blake was face down in the dirt, Zachary's knee in his back as he secured handcuffs. "Threatening an officer of the law," Zachary announced, hauling Blake to his feet. "That'll be a week in jail and a hefty fine." As two deputies led Blake away, Zachary returned to Zara, concern etched on his features. "I'm sorry about that." "Not your fault," she assured him, though her hands trembled slightly. "Still, maybe I should see you home." The walk back to the boarding house was quiet, both lost in their thoughts. At the porch steps, Zachary paused. "I never wanted to put you in an uncomfortable position, Zara." "You haven't," she insisted. "Blake's actions are his own responsibility. People will talk." "People always talk," she countered. "In Boston, they talked because I was too outspoken. Here, they'll talk because I refuse to be intimidated by a bully. I'd rather be talked about for the right reasons." Zachary studied her face in the moonlight. "You truly are the fiercest woman I've ever met." "Is that a compliment, Sheriff?" she asked softly. "The highest," he confirmed, then hesitantly leaned forward to press a gentle kiss to her cheek. "Good night, Zara." As autumn deepened into winter, Zara found herself increasingly entwined in the life of Clearwater Springs. She had taken over most of the boarding house management, freeing Zadie to pursue her interest in millinery. The small hat shop Zadie opened adjacent to the boarding house quickly became popular with local ladies. Zara's relationship with Zachary progressed with careful deliberation. Their frequent walks and shared meals drew knowing smiles from townspeople, but neither rushed to define what was growing between them. December brought heavy snows and the town's Christmas preparations. Zara found herself helping organize the church pageant and decorating the boarding house with evergreen boughs and red ribbons. "First Christmas away from home?" Zachary asked as he helped her hang a wreath on the boarding house door. "Yes, though home stopped feeling like home after my parents passed," she admitted. "This feels more like a community than Boston did in those final years. You've made quite an impact here," he observed. "Reverend Thompson says attendance at the Ladies' Aid Society has doubled since you started attending." Zara laughed. "Only because I suggested they focus on practical assistance rather than just prayer circles. The women here have remarkable skills, they just needed organization." "That's what I admire about you," Zachary said, securing the wreath in place. "You see possibilities where others see obstacles." A comfortable silence fell between them as they stepped back to admire their handiwork. Snow began to fall in large, lazy flakes, catching in Zara's hair and on her eyelashes. "Beautiful," Zachary murmured, and Zara realized he wasn't looking at the wreath. "Zachary," she began, uncertain how to express the feelings that had been growing within her. "I have something for you," he interrupted, reaching into his coat pocket. "An early Christmas gift." He withdrew a small velvet pouch and placed it in her palm. Inside, Zara found a delicate silver pendant on a chain, a small flame crafted in silver. "It reminded me of you," he explained as she examined it. "The day we met, when Blake said you were too fierce, I thought to myself that your fire was exactly what made you special." Zara looked up at him, deeply moved. "It's beautiful, may I?" he asked, taking the necklace. She turned, lifting her hair as he fastened it around her neck. His fingers lingered at her nape. When she turned back to face him, their proximity sent her heart racing. Snowflakes continued to fall around them, creating a private world of white. "Zara," he said quietly, "I know you came here expecting one life and found another. I don't want to presume," she interrupted, a smile touching her lips. "Please." His hands gently framed her face. "I'm falling in love with you," he confessed. "Your strength, your determination, your compassion, everything about you." "And I with you," she whispered back. "Your integrity, your kindness, your respect for who I am." Their first kiss was tentative, a gentle exploration that quickly deepened with shared emotion. When they finally parted, Zara felt breathless and more certain than she'd ever been. "I should go," Zachary said reluctantly. "There's a town council meeting in 20 minutes. Will you come for dinner tomorrow?" she asked. "Wild horses couldn't keep me away." Christmas Eve arrived with a clear sky and temperatures cold enough to freeze breath into visible clouds. The town gathered at the church for the evening service, followed by a community celebration in the decorated town hall. Zara sat beside Zachary, their hands occasionally brushing as they shared a hymnal. When he officially escorted her to the celebration afterward, no one seemed surprised to see them as a couple. "Took you long enough," Zadie teased her brother as they helped distribute mugs of hot cider. "I was beginning to think you'd never work up the courage to court her properly." "Some things are worth taking time to do right," he replied, his eyes finding Zara across the room. The evening was filled with music, laughter, and the warmth of community. As midnight approached, Zachary drew Zara away from the crowd and out onto the small balcony overlooking the snow-covered town square. "Cold?" he asked, immediately offering his coat. "Not with you here," she answered, but accepted it nonetheless. Zachary seemed uncharacteristically nervous, shifting his weight and repeatedly touching the pocket of his vest. "Is something wrong?" she finally asked. "Nothing's wrong," he assured her. "Everything's right, actually, more right than I ever imagined possible." He took her gloved hands in his. "Zara, These past months have shown me what a true partnership could be. You came west seeking security, but you've brought strength and purpose to everyone you've met, especially me." Realization dawned as he lowered himself to one knee on the snow-dusted balcony. "I'm not offering the grand ranch you were promised," he continued, "but I promise to build a life with you based on respect and love. I promise to cherish your fierce spirit and never try to diminish your fire." From his pocket, he produced a simple gold band. "Zara O'Connor, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears blurred her vision as she nodded. "Yes," she managed. 1,000 times yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to embrace her, the church bells began to toll midnight, welcoming Christmas Day and their new beginning. Spring came early to Clearwater Springs in 1876. The April sunshine warmed the earth as townsfolk gathered outside the white-steepled church, straining to glimpse the bride as she arrived in a flower-decked wagon. Inside, Zachary waited at the altar, uncharacteristically formal in his best suit. When the doors opened and Zara appeared in a gown of ivory silk, a collective murmur of appreciation rippled through the congregation. Zadie had outdone herself with the wedding preparations, transforming the church with spring flowers and ribbons. As maid of honor, she beamed with pride as Zara made her way down the aisle to her brother. "You look beautiful," Zachary whispered as she reached him. "And you look terrified," she whispered back with a smile. "Only of waking up and finding this was all a dream," he admitted. Reverend Thompson's ceremony was mercifully brief, focusing on partnership and mutual respect rather than wifely submission, a reflection of the couple's explicit requests. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Zachary's kiss was both tender and possessive, drawing cheers from their friends. The celebration afterward lasted well into the evening, with dancing, feasting, and numerous toasts to the sheriff and his bride. As sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, they slipped away to the new house Zachary had built at the edge of town, a comfortable 2-story home with a wide front porch and room to grow. "Welcome home, Mrs. Winters," he said, sweeping her into his arms to carry her across the threshold. "That sounds strange," she laughed. "I'm still getting used to it." "We have a lifetime for you to practice," he assured her, setting her down in the parlor where a fire welcomed them with crackling warmth. "A lifetime," she echoed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I like the sound of that." 5 years later, Zara stood on that same porch, watching as Zachary taught their 4-year-old son Zachariah how to properly hold a fishing pole. Their 2-year-old daughter Emily played nearby, carefully arranging pebbles in patterns only she understood. The boarding house had been sold 2 years earlier when Zadie married the town's new doctor, though Zara still helped with the books for Zadie's flourishing millinery shop. Instead, Zara had established a small school in a converted storefront, teaching the town's children and several adults who sought to improve their reading and arithmetic. Zachary had been re-elected sheriff 3 times, his fair-minded approach to law enforcement earning him respect throughout the territory. Together, they had become pillars of the community, their partnership a model that influenced others. Edmund Blake had eventually sold his struggling ranch and moved further west, his departure largely unmourned. His parting shot, a drunken claim that no real man could handle a woman as fierce as Zara O'Connor, had become something of a joke among townspeople. "Mama, look." Little Zachariah called excitedly as he reeled in his first fish, a modest trout that seemed enormous in his small hands. "Well done," she called back, smiling as Zachary helped their son remove the hook with gentle guidance. As they carried their prize toward the house, Zachary's proud expression encompassed both his son's achievement and the life they had built together. "Dinner will be even better tonight," he announced, lifting Emily into his free arm as he climbed the porch steps. Later that evening, with the children asleep and the house quiet save for the crackling fire, Zara and Zachary sat together on the sofa, her head resting on his shoulder as they shared the comfortable silence of deep companionship. "Any regrets?" he asked suddenly. "About answering that advertisement, coming west," Zara considered the question seriously. None, she finally answered, though I'm grateful every day that Blake proved to be such a disappointment. Zachary chuckled. As am I, though I'd never have wished you that distress. It wasn't distress that brought me to you, she corrected. It was knowing my own worth and refusing to settle for less than I deserved. He kissed her temple. Your fire continues to keep me alive, Mrs. Winters, every single day. Zara turned her face to his, the silver flame pendant still hanging at her throat after all these years. And your love gives that fire purpose, she murmured before their lips met in a kiss that held all the passion and tenderness of their journey together. Outside, the Montana night spread its star-filled canopy over the town they'd helped build, and the home they'd created a testament to the unexpected path that had brought a fierce mail-order bride and a steadfast sheriff to find in each other exactly what they needed, but had never thought to seek.